Let's definitely talk about cordyceps. It seems like cordyceps are going to be probably a huge focus for endurance athletes or for
Totally.
people playing sports.
Yes. And I'll say I've worked with a lot of athletes, professional athletes. I was in Boulder. That's where I opened my private practice. Like people come from all over to train in Boulder, right? We're at like almost 6,000 feet elevation up there. And the performance piece only goes so far. You have to also nurture the chaga piece, right? That defend, keeping your system in this vital state to begin with, and the restore are equally as important to hit those performance metrics, right? So like I can't stress that enough. We'll talk about cordyceps and it's awesome and amazing ally for athletes, but long term, I'll say you will be a better athlete. You'll have more of a sustainable career in your running or whatever it is that your outlet is if you take care of the defend and the restore equally as much as that performance piece.
I
Little
love I love
fun.
that.
Okay. So cordyceps, super cool. Our performance fungi. Little history is cordyceps is found naturally about above 13,000 feet elevation. So it was originally discovered up in the Himalayas. Think like Nepal, Tibet, China, northern India region, and Sherpas would go climb up and they would herd their yaks up into the Himalayas in the early spring. And their yaks would start like munching on this little thing like in the ground they were finding in the grass. And then within minutes, the yaks would go into heat, like become super horny.
Oh wow.
And these Sherpas are like, what is going on? I'm like, why do we have these horny yaks? And so they started identifying what they were eating and they realized they were eating these cordyceps. So they collected them and they brought them down to their village and shared them with the monks and they started checking them out and eating them and noticing what was happening. And essentially what's going on is cordyceps are vasodilators and they can increase the amount of oxygen that our body uptakes by about 15%.
Oh
So this
wow.
is
15%?
up to 15%. So this is massive. So, you know, the
Yeah.
Sherpas, what they mostly noticed is, wow, I can breathe better at higher elevations. I have more stamina. I have more endurance, which is, you know, without having a stimulant. There isn't like a direct stimulant that's propping them up and then leading to a crash later. It's just allowing this greater oxygenation through the system, which is so important for our performance. So in the early 90s, it was 1991, there was this team of women Olympic athletes that broke all these world records in this like 1 week. And the industry came down on them and was like, you must be doping. Like, there's no way this can happen. You guys are outperforming all the other people. Like, what's going on? And they did this deep dive and realized that they were Chinese and they realized that they were all taking cordyceps mushrooms. And so
Dang.
that kind of exploded. That was like the birth of cordyceps for the fitness world. And that was what, already like 33 years ago. So yeah, really amazing. They're one of the few fungi that you can feel within, most people can feel within like a few minutes of taking them, like usually 15, 30 minutes, which is really unique. A lot of like chaga, you don't really feel if your body's
Right.
getting like a great dose of antioxidants. It's like amazing, but usually there's nothing you feel from it.
Right.
Cordyceps are really different. So I love giving people cordyceps, especially if they don't believe in the benefits of mushrooms. I'm like, here's a real cordyceps, like extract, high dose, take it. And I check back in with them in like 15, 20 minutes. It's like, I'm ready to move. So super cool. I would try it, you know, a couple times pre-workout. But it can, the goal with all of this herbal medicine and fungi is that we never want to depend on anything, right? We want to use them as allies, but we never want crutches. So you never want to use any of these as a crutch. And cordyceps can potentially lend to that because you'll notice, I'd be shocked if you didn't, but you probably notice your numbers increasing. You're like, well, I can run faster. I have more energy. I can run longer, whatever it might be. So try it pre-workout for a while, but really for those long-term benefits, take it post-workout. So I find much more sustainable results if you take it in your post-workout recovery And then the next day when you run the next week, you know, if you take it consistently, you'll start to naturally build, like those compounds are in your body, but you're not depending on them as a crutch to then be like, I can't run without this.
Right. So is that something, I feel like I read somewhere that you want to like cycle on and off of cordyceps, like use it for say like, I don't know, 2 weeks at a time, take a week off, 2 weeks at a time. Is there any merit to that?
Yeah, there's lots of different methods with cycling on and off of all adaptogens. And the way there's not like a one rule of thumb that I stick by, but really, if these are working, we'll want to switch it up. It's like if you're super stressed and you're taking reishi for a couple weeks, ideally you're not as stressed anymore. So you want to take a break to come back to baseline. And the rule of thumb I kind of do is like 3 weeks on, 3 days off, or you can do 3 months on, 3 weeks off, like cycle depending on your regimen and what you're working on. But yeah, super important to take that break, to come off, to see where you are when you're not using the functional mushroom, and then potentially mix it up. Like ideally, you're not as stressed as you were after you took something to support your nervous system for several weeks, then maybe something else is going on, right? And you want to start focusing on your focus or your physical energy or your sleep, right? And so you can pivot, and that'll be the most sustainable. Yeah.
That makes sense. So for me, maybe I don't know if you could like prescribe this per se, but so I'm training for my first 100-mile race. It'll be in the mountains in Wyoming at like 9,000 feet elevation. This is in June.
Awesome. Yep.
How would you recommend maybe I utilize cordyceps leading up, like during the training? I'll be in Austin, so it's close to sea level for pretty much all the training. But then during the race, I'll be at elevation. Like, what would you recommend for that?
Yeah, good question. So first thing that I'll say, instead of just like, yes, take cordyceps, is that it's really important to understand your body type when we recommend any sort of herb or mushroom, right? So we all have the elements within us, and we all basically are on a spectrum of being either hot or cold or moist or dry, right? And same with all of our plants and our fungi. So kind of an obvious example is like ginger is really hot and dry, right? We know that. It's like spicy and worming, it's hot. Or like cannabis is really drying, right? That's an obvious one. Or aloe vera is like a very moistening herb. Mints are very cooling, right? So just like us, we all have this. Some of us are more moist, right? We're like prone to being sweatier. Some of us are prone to be more of a warm constitution, right? You're sitting in a room and maybe you're the one with your shirt off. Someone else has like a bundled layer on, right? So we all are on these two kind of axes of warm, cool, and moist, dry. And so are all of our plant and fungal medicines.
I'm very warm and very moist for sure, without a doubt.
And you live in Austin, so that's that's actually not surprising. Your environment plays a big factor. Part of it is what you're born with, but there's a huge part about your environment. Like pretty much everyone in Colorado is dry. If you're living at above 5,000, 6,000 feet elevation, you're going to be dry. If you're living in a really humid, moist place like Austin, you're most likely going to be really moist. So, anyways, this is where like the art of formulation comes into place. Which is so important I like to say, like at Sigmatic, we don't sell single ingredients, we sell formulas, to be able to have this balanced energetic. So we're not just offering something that's really going to push you in one direction or another. So I'll say that. And I would love to have you work with an herbalist for a couple weeks before this training to get like the right dialed formula for your body and your needs. But I guess like high level, you can start working with cordyceps now. I'd take it for like a week pre-workout to really feel how it's moving in your body. Then I'd take a couple days off. I think you could do like a 7 days on, 2 days off, or 5 days on, 2 days off. Whatever's easiest with your schedule. I like to say the medicine doesn't work if we don't take it. So it's got to be easy. It's got to be consistent. It's got to like build off something that you already do. And I think if you start taking it, after that first week of like really feeling its effects in your body, you start taking it in your recovery. So you take it after your training. And I would do that in that recovery mode for honestly a couple months. You could do on and off. You could do 3 weeks on, 3 days off might be the right protocol for you. If June is like a couple months, 4 months away, that might be the right move. And then depending, yeah, I think that'll set yourself up for success leading up to your big race. And you could do it all the way up to, the day that you set out on trail. Is it on trail or on pavement? I don't know.
It's on trail. Yeah, it's very super mountainous. So could I like theoretically just like load up on cordyceps, or is there? I'm sure there's like a limiting effect, right?
Yeah, this is a great question. There's not really a point with adaptogens where there's an overdose, right? They're balancing, right? So we're so used to in our society, like more is better. That's not necessarily the case. It's like our bodies can only utilize a certain amount at given times. So if you're totally new to taking a functional mushroom, I would start low, right? And allow your body to start using that. 500 milligrams is like a effective starting dose. So I would start there and then build up. We really see benefits plateauing at like 2,000, maybe 3,000 milligrams. So that's like 2 or 3 grams a day. That would be like a really high end. And usually our bodies can't even utilize that much. So it's more like a ceiling dose. It's like you're only going to use so much. Right. And then if you take extra, it's kind of just like an overflow. You're not really getting anything more from that.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
But yeah, starting with 500 milligrams for at least like a week, a couple weeks. And then for you, I would build up. You can see it's always like listening to your body is so important. It sounds like taboo and woo-woo, but the point with this is everybody's different. And so that's your judge, right? We're like listening to how is this working in my body? There's not a set hard rule of like 500 milligrams for this amount of time, 1,000 for this. It's like, okay, we might need to tamper you back or boost you up a little bit. And only your body is going to be the one to understand and share. So that's what I mean. Listen to your body, not to be woo-woo, but to really say, okay, and body is laboratory, right? You can experiment, like try a little higher for a few days, see how you feel. Then try like a much smaller dose. Maybe at a smaller dose, your body's going to utilize that more efficiently than if you just slam, too much at once. So yeah, I would try both, but yeah, 500 milligrams is like a good starting place of an extract. And then 1,500 milligrams is really, if you're going to be doing this for several weeks or several months, that's kind of the range I would suggest sticking within.